The woman took advantage of her husband's deep sleep to swap her son with her sister's son. She had long discovered that her husband and sister were having an affair. To fight for the family inheritance, she swapped her child with her sister's. After all, the sister knew her older sister's family was wealthier. She planned to have her son raised into a talent, then inherit the family fortune. Then, her sister would join forces with the scoundrel to drive her out of the house. When she learned the truth, the woman was filled with anger and sorrow. She never imagined the two people closest to her would betray her. However, she didn't choose to expose them immediately. Instead, one night, she secretly swapped the children back. Since they loved to scheme, she would play along. The date her son inherited the family fortune would be when they faced the consequences. 18 years passed in the blink of an eye. Her son was well-behaved and excellent, admired by everyone. Meanwhile, the sister's son, despite his talent in painting, was always met with cold indifference. Unknowingly, the sister had always been kind to the woman's son. When she learned he was going to be accepted into a top university, she was overjoyed. She kept praising him, saying he would surely inherit the family business one day. The woman, however, advised her to focus more on her own child. But the scheming sister said her own child was a useless failure. Just as she finished speaking, a stranger interrupted her. It was a professor from an art institute. He had seen the scheming daughter's paintings and thought the boy had great talent. He had tracked down the address to offer to take him on as a student. But the sister had deliberately raised her son to be useless. She naturally wouldn't agree. So, she falsely claimed the professor had made a mistake and sent him away. Seeing the change in her expression, the woman subtly asked her about it. The sister didn't dare openly admit she had been raising a useless child. She only called the professor a scammer and hurried upstairs. After settling her son, the woman quietly followed her. At that moment, the sister was on the phone with the scoundrel, discussing their plans. She said her son had great talent in painting. What if he outshines the woman's son with his exceptional talent? To secure her son's inheritance, the scheming sister decided to break his hand so he could never paint again. The woman never expected them to be so vicious. So, she pretended to have just arrived and interrupted the sister. She reminded her to care more for her own child. Otherwise, she would regret it for the rest of her life. But the sister clearly didn't understand her hint. She said her child could be beaten or scolded as she pleased. No one could stop her. Seeing the sister's stubbornness, the woman stopped insisting. Coincidentally, she met the boy on his way back. After all, the child was innocent. To prevent him from getting his hand broken, the woman pretended to spill water on his school uniform. She told him to take it off and go wash up, asking him not to leave the house that night. Once done, she called the scoundrel. Claiming her son had left his school uniform at school, she asked him to pick it up. Naturally, the scoundrel was eager to help since it was about her son. But as he held the uniform, he was mistaken for the talented artist by the sister's hired thugs. They immediately broke his hand. When the sister realized the uniform belonged to the scoundrel, she was completely stunned. The thugs, realizing the mistake, quickly fled. The sister intended to take the scoundrel to the hospital, but then, the woman called. She said she found a spare uniform and didn't need to send it. She also bought a gift for the scoundrel as compensation and left it on the table. Upon hearing about the scoundrel being injured, the woman pretended to take her son to see him. But the scoundrel knew this was the key moment for her son's university acceptance. Without hesitation, he refused. Not wanting the situation to escalate, the sister helped the scoundrel back to her house to call a family doctor. Coincidentally, the gift left by the woman was still on the table. When the scoundrel opened the box, he found a pen. But with his right hand broken, he couldn't write. In a fit of rage, he threw the pen to the floor. Unexpectedly, this caught the attention of the old man. When he learned the scoundrel had been beaten at the doorstep, he immediately demanded an investigation. The scoundrel tried to refuse, saying it was no big deal, but the old man had already caught the thugs. He angrily demanded to know who had instructed them. The thugs immediately pointed to the scheming sister. To cover up her actions, the sister stubbornly refused to admit it. At this point, the woman returned with her son. She knew the thugs attacking the scoundrel had been exposed, but she didn't reveal the truth. Instead, she watched as the sister blamed it on her son. She lied, saying it was because her son had been bullied at school that he sought revenge and accidentally beat the wrong person. Since the selection of the next CEO was near, the old man didn't pursue the matter further. The sister still dreamed of her biological son inheriting the company. Unbeknownst to her, she had already lost. When the scoundrel was sent for a checkup, the old man suggested doing the same for both children. After all, the future CEO couldn't be physically weak. But the sister and the scoundrel, worried about the swap being revealed, refused outright. To avoid the checkup, the sister deliberately set a fire under the smoke detector, causing confusion. Meanwhile, the woman watched everything unfold. She was curious to see the look on their faces when they finally learned the truth. The day of the succession ceremony arrived. Without a doubt, the woman's son became the next CEO. Seeing that everything was settled, the scoundrel and the sister eagerly stood up. In front of everyone, they announced that the sister's child was their biological son. Little did they know, the woman had been waiting for this moment for a full 18 years.